wrong, because she was just all about, well, I've got a tip. And it's like, you know, and you're killing yourself.
Told her to paint some paintings too.
It's just like, don't make me come out there to slap
Okay, so what do we have again that might just be her thought minus anything else? So basically, it's like if you're in a jar, your brain is playing with itself.
Right.
Okay.
I think she's going to double bind whatever the thoughts are. She's got one at war with the other.
Okay, so give
Well,
me
she said she feels
I've been feeling
obligated.
double bind from the very beginning when she
Okay.
laid on the table.
Right, well that's what we're having. These two are not connecting. One is saying no, the other one's saying yes.
She's like, I'm obligated, but I deserve better. I'm obligated, but I deserve. I could change this.
Well, the desire would be to not have to eat the shit over and over, but the bottom line is the obligation.
I think
is
she's
the
torn between, well, how do I love myself and express through action and my behavior my love for the people who are important to me. But that's coming from me in terms of the Katie I'm aware of.
Right. Okay, but this, I want to push this. It's only her. There's no fucking out there. What is the relationship she's having with herself? Let me put it another way. What is the relationship she's having with her own consciousness? Nothing else. That's creating the outside thing. What is the relationship? Because that's what it comes down to. Is my relationship with myself creates every fucking thing else. That's crazy if you can take it.
Seems like it's just out of line with just self then, just without,
she's
like we
making
were talking about
herself
earlier,
I'm not
that
taking care
so
of it.
so being in line with like we were talking earlier, to your higher self or whatever, that's all about joy. So like in the analogy you were saying, just thought to create toxin, man, that just doesn't, it's just totally 180 degrees from where you would line up for self. So what would cause that? I mean, gee, that's just all the programs. It's like almost inorganic thoughts
This is
in
the
a way.
story that she's telling herself.
Yeah, that's the thing I want you to get is that if it's just a brain in a jar, there's no other interactions, it's the story, there's only one story, it's all in her head. But it's her relationship with herself.
Right, so it wouldn't matter who the players were. You could change the players to a whole new person and a whole new situation. The whole belief would be the same damn thing.
Right.
You just replace
Exactly,
the
that's a good point.
players.
Because actually, here's the thing that came to me recently is sometimes in a relationship, the person doesn't matter as much, like Bill, as the pattern that that person is bringing.
Because sometimes you'll get away from Bill, but then you'll find a new Bill.
Right. So it's not the person. It's the pattern she's creating out there. So she's.
Because I'm trying to stay with the brain in the jar.
Thank you.
So the brain in the jar doesn't make a fuck because anybody that comes in is going to be the same. Like okay, we'll say John in her life is John in her life. But if John got out of her life, she brings somebody else in. She's going to be the same situation because that's the way her brain thinks.
Okay.
Is that what you're meaning?
Kind of. It comes back to this. Let's say that everything in reality, and this guy goes Zen woo woo woo, is there's one being, and you're simply having a relationship with yourself. But we see all these different people, and it appears to be a certain way. But what if it's all about one relationship to one being?
Everybody else is a mirror.
Yeah, everybody else is a mirror of yourself. Okay. So what is her brain?
Okay, I don't get it when people say that.
Okay.
I do not get it when they say that.
Imagine that there's only one being out here. Okay, it's her, and she's in a jar. I'll see if I can take this experiment all the way.
Okay.
I'm putting the brain in the jar, and that in itself creates physicality. Thinking. So that's a mistake in itself. But
I get it.
Okay,
but I get
you
that.
It. Okay. So there's a brain in a jar.
Yeah.
There's no way anything else is interacting with that brain at all.
Right.
What she thinks, and this is actually how they say our brain works. What she thinks, she is creating the pictures like when you dream. This is exactly what happens when you dream. Is reality really happening when you're sleeping?
Absolutely.
But the body feels like it is.
It feels like it.
Yeah, it feels. Okay.
Yeah,
but don't you have different characters doing different things all the time?
Yes.
Well, isn't awake life very similar to that? I mean,
Yes.
what do you think about it?
Yes.
Very, very similar. So let's just say that there's a brain dreaming. What would the dream be based? What would that dream be based in? The beliefs that she may have here that she's projecting out into that pattern.
Each of the people in your dream
Represent
reflects some
you.
part of your own
Well,
personality.
yeah, that's the answer to Bambi's. It's all one person. Exactly. Everybody in this group is a reflection of some aspect of me. Some have, maybe everybody has one aspect, but then there's mixed up things. So in a way, yeah, I'm playing with myself. That's all we're ever doing. So when somebody makes you angry, that's you. That's fucking you that you're angry at. If you don't get that and you project out there, you'll never fix out what's in the jar. 'Cause that's all it is. Here's the brain in the jar, and it's a mirror jar. Mirror's going in. There's nobody else interacting with that at all. What would be the pattern that she's holding to have this? Here's toxins that I don't want coming in, and I have to take it.
It's all thoughts, patterns, and beliefs.
Say that again, please.
She said, am I holding the anger pattern? Yeah.
I would call it more of a frustration that.
Yeah,
produces-
anger, frustration,
There's
that's all the
the-
same level. It's frustration, because here's the thing I'm getting at. It's frustration.
Frustration with self?
That's what I'm getting at, yeah. It comes back to yourself. Okay, she is
She's
frustrated.
under the brain in the jar.
Okay, here's the community. She's frustrated. Okay, I try to make this, I'm going to try it one more time. Okay, here we have the liver, and it's a hard concept to really fully own. That's why
Yeah,
people
that's
can't,
what I'm
okay?
trying to get it.
So
Yeah.
here's the liver, this is the mirror. Okay, this is the mirror coming back. Here's the liver, here's the small intestine. They're all not working properly, they're not communicating, and they touch each other. They work as partners. They're not working together, okay? That's the physical level, okay? What it represents on the communal level is there's things coming into her environment, liver, that she's taking in because she doesn't have the ability to say no, whether that's fear or whatever, that makes her compromise herself, okay? So you could then be angry at the toxic environment, or you could realize that toxic environment there is reflecting something within you, okay? And that comes back to you. So I can be angry at that toxic environment, which is actually, you need to get the fuck away from something that's toxic, period. It's not that we stop living reality, we do what we need to do. See, Beth is like, brain, get it.
I want to get it, but it's...
Okay, so let me try to jump it one more time. Let's jump it one more time. Now that they're saying, let's just say this is a relationship. In this relationship, this person is toxic to her. She's frustrated. That's the anger part Marcia mentioned. Frustration is just in the lower octave of anger. She's frustrated with that thing out there because she's having to take it in and she wants to say no.
But she doesn't say no, she said before, because she feels obligated.
Okay, but now let's take away the environment. We still have the same pattern.
we're back.
But now we still have the same pattern,
Sorry.
but take away the environment.
Okay,
There's
yeah,
nobody
yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah, okay.
There's
Nobody else out there.
Nobody
the brain
else.
in the jar.
Nobody else out there. It's pretty trippy. Okay, so there's nobody else out there. She's angry at taking in. She's angry. Okay, now I'm losing myself. If it's all her, she's angry at herself for doing something to her.
For entrapping herself?
Huh?
Allowing
you to, for it to
allowing
be
it to
like this.
happen.
Entrapping, yeah. So, we may not
Okay, so she's not saying no. I'm going to try to break this
Right, go
down
ahead, thank
for
you.
my own head.
Yeah.
She's not saying no.
She's not saying no, but
But she should
her
say
liver is saying that's a toxin. I recognize that. I say no. The small intestine goes, yeah. Okay? Yeah, she needs to be saying no. She
But
says
I'm
yes.
gonna allow it in.
Right, she says yes. It comes in because the liver says no. Get the fuck away from me. Because we need to do that sometimes, right? Okay? But she doesn't do that. She says yes. And then the liver gets more and more angry and irritated. That's what's keeping her up at night because it's not being listened to. And the
So
small
when she's
intestine.
asleep, it's like, hey, damn it.
Listen
You're not
to
listening
me.
to me. Is that
And
more?
then little small
Right.
intestines, well, we gotta deal with this toxicity.
So if this other person is a reflection of herself, she's in a sense in herself beating up on herself.
Exactly.
It's almost kind of like the brain is saying, if you're not going to listen to me, I'll get this attention this way, right? Because isn't this supposed to be like the brain of...
Could be.
I think she's angry with herself because she thinks she's supposed to be able to handle whatever it is.
That's
and
part of it.
Which still goes back to
and she
belief.
feels responsible for what, I'm not going to put words in her mouth, but there's this whole thing of whatever our roles are in life, when we let go and don't feel like we're the ones that have to keep the sky from falling and the earth going around and around, then things flow and we're open and free to receive what comes through us, to us and through us, that we don't have to conjure up ourselves. And And I think she's angry at herself for not, it's like she's at war with,
She is at war. Yeah.
she's at war with what Jim would probably call the programming, which is a big, massive stuff that all runs together for all of us, that says we have to be one way, but spirit, I'm just saying spirit for short form, spirit is really our true self. But if we're all wrapped up in the roles, responsibilities.
That's what she sees a matrix out of that.
Yeah.
It still goes back to belief.
Yeah.
It's just a belief. Then what we have to do is change the belief.
Change the pattern of the
And that's going back to her only.
Because it's
Yeah.
only a brain in a jar. So it's what the thing believes.
Right, that's creating the dream.
That's creating
Perfect.
the whole thing.
Right.
So if
Which
we're,
goes back to the whole thing about inception. You know, they implanted this whole thing, and the brain, the subconscious, created the rest of the thing. Because they didn't have to program it. They just gave it, like, here's a little,
they gave it a belief.
a hint, or whatever, yeah. And then the brain...
So here you go.
Right.
Here it's snowing outside. Take the rest away, or whatever.
So what might be the beliefs that would put you in a situation like this? Where you're having to say, where you're saying yes, I'm not saying having to, you're saying yes when you should be saying no.
Well, that word she used was an obligation, your word, Katie.
They really liked that word. So obligation means what? I what?
Have to.
Have to, perfect.
To me, she's got a certain idea of what it means for her to be able to be an acceptable, good person, have
It's kind of like we
self-worth.
have to exist.
To be the mother that I'm supposed to be the wife I'm supposed to be the grandmother I'm supposed to be, because this is what I believe that grandma, mama, and wife should be. I don't know. I'm just asking.
What was that?
Well, I think our words really matter that much. It's gotta
I mean,
be
I'm
her.
just
Right.
trying to go on beliefs. If you're stuck in a situation that you're miserable in, then obviously there's a belief that you have to be doing what you're doing, right? I mean,
Or you could be telling yourself, well, I'll never be like so-and-so.
Yes,
That's what I feel like it is.
because the flip side of that, I've seen personally, can be like a really ugly picture. So you think you're going to learn from that negativity and you're going to do better.
So you're saying if I'm not like this, whatever
Right,
this
if
is,
I'm
I'll
not-
be ugly, and I'm not going to be ugly in the way that.
Because it's hurtful.
But
to
you're
people.
thinking ugly as evil.
So you'd rather
I'm
hurt
not putting
yourself
words-
than-
the word evil, but not good.
Yeah, well, a lot of our programming is off backwards because we see something, we don't like it, so we try to do the opposite, right?
Yes.
So, but here's the thing, though: the judgment is on what? Let's take it from that. Let's take it from that thing. Okay, I know a little bit. So your mother, very dominating, angry, pushy, bitchy broad.
Selfish, quote unquote.
Okay, so she was a pushy, bitchy broad. Her judgment, she judged that. Remember when I talked about what knocks us out of the kingdom, right? Out of the paradise. She judged that. When you judge that, like when I'm trying to bring the view, Laura, about the money. When you look at rich people and you judge them, you actually cut that ability out of your life. So she's cutting her ability to stand up for herself because she's judging that. Because here's the thing, is she cannot be pushy when she needs to be pushy. And that's all about liver. So she's got a judgment about being pushy, which means she can never be what she needs to be. Because here's the thing, is sometimes reality requires all spectrums. But if you have a judgment on it, you basically have limited yourself that way. You can't be it. She needs to be able to own her pushiness, but she judges pushiness. Does that make sense? So you need to say...
because from somebody who was super pushy and
Right.
super bitchy,
And
that's her picture of
So
it,
here
rather than
she wants to
somebody
go,
who
she
can
needs to
be level
say,
with
she
it.
needs to say no, and she doesn't want to be what she judged no to be related to.
Okay,
But it's
okay.
only the judgment, so she judges that. She has to drop the judgment, period. She judges her mom and
So
hasn't
she-
got rid of it yet.
She's really preventing herself from being
Yeah, I bet.
being able to create her own boundaries.
Right, because of the judgment first, period. She judges being pushy, but that's exactly what she needs.
And you don't always have to be pushy to create boundaries.
So it's her view of the
Well,
pushy.
you gotta have, you gotta be able to stand up.
But it's not an all or nothing thing, and sometimes that can get in our way if we think that,
Right.
Yeah,
there's no-
but for her, it's
They have a
pushy. She
different
doesn't have her
view.
pushing. What were you gonna say, Beth?
She's got an emotion that's with that judgment, that judgment of somebody asserting themselves. And in my horse program, we learn how to put some serious pressure on the horse with no emotion. Because it's just. There's an attitude of justice, which is profound to a horse. If you have an emotion with it, they feel your emotion, and they go, you are not fair, you're not
the
just.
boss.
Yeah, and I can fight you. But when you do it with I'm going to suggest, ask, tell, and then I'm going to promise. And then we can. There are 4 levels of
she had some movement with
friendly
that.
firmness.
See, I like the words you're using because justice and fair, or she felt like her mom was a bitch and wasn't fair, right? So she needs to realize that sometimes being pushy, just like you said, is fair. Because she's not being fair to herself.
Right, exactly.
She may be trying to be fair to everybody else, which actually in the end doesn't work either. Because you put
And in
people
that
in bad
program,
positions.
people begin to cry when they go through, because we do simulations without our horses. And when they understand that they can do that without, I'm getting goosebumps because when that reality sinks in, you go, oh, and your horse goes, they look at you and go, you are a fair and just leader, and I can follow you wherever you want me to go. And that horse will follow you because they get it.
See, in the military, here's the thing about military, is do you think they're like, I can't be pushy in this? Fuck no. If something needs to be done, you have to say, go do that without any emotion or any type of doubt.
Judgment even, no judgment. It's
Right.
about when you raise that, you say, I suggest, ask, yes. When you it's about, you got to have
The trust
rapport
comes
before you
first,
can have
yeah.
respect. All these things that we learn in the program are about, it's about being just and fair and
Before you have respect.
you have to have
Is that what you said?
rapport before you have respect.
So
Okay, so you suggest, ask, and what?
Tell, promise.
And tell me about promise.
Promise is, I'm going to come, Jim, I'm going to go to those 3
Stephanie.
people, but I'm going to go right over you unless you move. I will step on you unless you move. So then you say, do you understand that? Mm-hmm. So we have our tools that we play friendly with them, and then we say, okay, I'm coming through. And and then if you don't move, I whack you. So that's a promise. I'm going to walk through. I'm going to tell you, teach you how this works, teach you about my tools, and then I'm coming through. And if I whack you,
that's
because you didn't
I
get
know
it.
because they
But I let
weren't
you know,
working in
fairly.
a community.
Right,
That's the thing about
right.
the community. The community, which is 2 people, can be a community. It's commune. It's commune.
Yes,
it's
it's communal, which
communion,
we
right?
do, yeah. Mhm.
That only happens when you have a strong sense of self.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can't have a strong sense of self unless you can be able to say, this is what I need, this is what I want.
And when
You're
I
not
get
doing
to
it.
him, I don't wail on him and say, you didn't get up. I just say, psh, wow, you just ran into my stick. And then the next time you say, Jim, I'm coming through, and what does Jim do? Okay, and he steps to the
Right,
side.
yeah, you learn from that.
Yeah.
So by her not speaking up, what does that do the opposite way? It teaches the opposite thing, right? That you can disrespect me. So basically, she's been teaching her environment that
Please disrespect her.
Disrespect me.
Okay,
I'll
I get
take
it. I get it.
So the anger is angry at her because she is not what? Respecting herself and saying what I need. That's the
Standing
mirror.
up
That's
for
the mirror
self.
coming back.
And if those horses mirror us, because that's what this program's all about, they say it's not about horses, it's about you. And what we end up with then is a horse that's constantly asking you a question respectfully, like, because you're the leader, you're the benevolent, kind, trustful, just leader. And they go, you rang?
And
I go, they do. You go out and get on my horse.
That's like an obedience
And
training.
that's exactly what you want with children. because
Yes.
they're
Power yourself,
they're
Because
parents.
they feel
Right.
safe with us.
Right.
They'll-
And,
feel safe.
kids will test that because they want to, they need boundaries.
They need
That's why they
a
push, because they push to have you set boundaries. That's why people act, some bad attention is worse than no attention, so they'll push. So actually, part of your job is to be strict. Her experience was that she was overly strict, and she got a judgment on that.
experienced
But
strict.
she went the opposite way
Unjust.
to the point that she's been unjustful to herself by not standing up and doing what she needs to. She has to come back to the center, which is not judging herself when she has to stand up and say what I need. So yeah. So, but ultimately what I was trying to get back to is what we finally came down to. This anger about having to take this toxin in is coming back to, she's the one that's in charge of the pattern. It comes back to, I'm angry at myself for allowing this pattern. Because blah, blah, blah.
I've been going through that with Logan because he lives in 2 different homes, right, with me and my husband.
Yeah, and then you have 2 different
So-
programs.
So I have one step parent teaching him a whole other total belief system than what we have at our house.
Right,
So I'm literally, every time that I give him a command that he has to do, and he doesn't do it, he throws a fit, this is a pattern, I have to every time reel him in and say, Logan, was it your choice not to do what I asked? Yes, so now you don't get to, because whose fault is it? Mine. What should you have done? Got dressed. Then you would, and so I'm constantly having to do that with him. And
Well, it makes you think about the horses where you have to
Yes.
rein them in.
And you
right?
said
But you
rain
know
earlier,
what?
and I'm like, shut up, that
People call me mean.
Say it.
What, rein, what?
When he was saying you rein yourself in because you've
with the
got
horse
your
there.
five
So,
horses,
yeah,
you
yeah, I
got your
forgot I
five
mentioned that.
senses
Yeah.
and reining it in and controlling that. Yes.
But you know, people who don't have a strong sense and they see me parent, they think that I'm being mean to my child.
Yeah.
Because I'm holding
Because they
my...
have a judgment on your behavior.
Right,
Exactly,
And
because
that's-
I have this 7-year-old that I'm teaching to be self-strong.
And
You make a
accountable.
choice, and you're going to be accountable for my job is to show you yourself, how to be.
Right, so
Exactly.
like if
Exactly.
Katie had a charge on that and she saw you doing that, she may judge you
Yes,
based
absolutely.
on her misperception,
Right.
okay? Because, yeah, maybe her mom was a bitch. Maybe that was true.
Oh, yeah.
But the judgment upon it is what threw her out of grace. In other words, God didn't kick her out of grace. Her blindness did, okay? And now that blindness has crippled her.
See, the thing is, she wasn't a bitch to me. She was a bitch to my father.
Still, it doesn't matter because you
Still
saw that
just a pattern
environment
that you saw.
because you sympathized with your dad and you didn't want him. You
didn't
saw
want
from
him
the
to
outside.
see
You
you
didn't like what that felt like. So you've been not wanting to create that. But the thing about it is, she was the extreme. I mean, all of our emotions are appropriate. Sometimes we have to stand up for ourselves. If you don't stand up for yourself, you're just a pushover. You know,
I
that's
struggle with
not
that all
spiritual.
the time though, because my stepmother was just horrendous, and I'm a stepmother, so I fight that all the time. And I fight it with my horse. I know the program. I can teach
But
it.
it's your
But I'll go,
judgment.
when it's time to promise, I'll go, I don't want to get home. You know, my horse goes,
So
I win. I'm knocking you out of the
she
way.
didn't mean that, yeah.
Ben gets up there and goes,
Watch it.
But all of a sudden, well, warn Logan. Okay, Mama said, and she
So-
really means it.
So we kind of went the time warp. Let's try to
Sorry.
let's bring this back. No, that was all good. I want to bring it back. What can we do with Katie now? What do you say? So we can address the belief. We can address a judgment, the emotion, the physical. We can address all those. What do
Yeah.
you think the key issue is, though?
the judgment,
Clear
I
her
think.
her thinking, her
Right.
The judgment.
her judgment.
Okay. So the judgment would be what? On people being
Assertive?
Disrespectful.
assertive. Okay, let's just say, what do you need to be in the relationship? Do you need to be assertive? I like that word.
Myself?
Yeah. It was assertive a good word, though?
It's good.
Okay, so assertive, just like I did with Laura Thursday, assertive people are what? Well,
I am an assertive person,
Okay.
except in the one relationship that I need to be.
okay.
So I don't have a charge against the word assertive at all.
Okay, so what's the word we can use in this relationship issue?
Respective, respectful.
That-
Okay,
where's
let
the
her-
charge?
Let her use the word.
Yeah.
What is it that you need to do in this relationship?
I don't know that there is probably another word that might
No, I don't care.
assertive. I mean,
So assertive is okay.
it's, yeah.
Okay.
Is particular.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier. She said it in this particular area of life. So she has a charge on that, but the charge was on how her mother treated her husband, right?
Right.
In this particular case is, right, husband-wife, right? So there's the correlation there. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. So in that case, let's look at your mom, just so we can see. My mother's behavior, we won't even label it. My mother's behavior to my father was what?
Ugly, hateful,
Disrespectful.
hurtful, disrespectful.
Right.
Oh my lord.
Emotional
So all of
boundaries
that
crossed.
is the judgment, though. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's what she's trying to prevent herself from being. So when she's like that, she judges herself. So she doesn't do it.
So do you
So
feel like
she
your
allows
mom?
things to happen.
Do you feel like your mom like destroyed your dad? Is that what you're
Absolutely.
trying to do? I mean, it's like that's the pattern that you're holding is destruction. It's like
Would that be a good word?
suck out your life, or what? I mean, what is it that you're trying to do? What do you feel like suffocated? Do you know what I mean?
Of course, I'm not trying to do that to myself.
No, but I mean holding that pattern.
The word that you just used, suffocated,
Yes.
that's what I've been stuck on. I can't breathe, I'm suffocating.
Okay, but that's the result, not the beginning
Not the
issue. The
judgment.
beginning issue, the judgment is the beginning issue. That is the result. This is all the result.
So we got suffocated, so why can't we just go backwards from
Right,
there
yeah,
so
you
we
can go
can
back from
find
suffocated,
the,
yeah.